What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Gouache Universe podcast. I'm that comic book artist that discusses comics, science fiction, and pop culture news, all while changing the universe, one subject at a time. So we're back. I got my main man Teddy here. We're going to talk about X-Men 97, episode 6, Life, Death, Part 2. How you doing, Teddy? How you doing? What's going on?
I'm doing well, man. Beautiful, beautiful day and another solid episode for us to review. So looking
Okay.
forward to looking forward to
I see you still rocking the Golden Girl shirt there. So maybe
that.
they can get you through not only last week's episode, but this week's episode too, you know?
Yeah, golden man. Everything up until now, this is the vibe of the day. So
Yeah,
looking
cool.
forward to discussing.
All right, so let's jump right into it. So overall, what's your opinion of this particular episode, Life, Death, Part 6? What's your overall thoughts on the episode?
Um, I mean, to kind of follow up on the previous episode, it is very hard to top that. Like that was eh, so overwhelming and a lot to decompress and kind of like follow up on, because when you kind of raise the bar with episode 5 and being able to see what you can do afterwards and still build a story and continue where they're going with 97 is very difficult to do. But I think this was a very well-rounded episode and um yeah, solid all around.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking the same thing. Like leading into this particular episode, I was like, man, episode 5 was just so impactful and just so like earth shattering. It's almost like a season finale type of episode. And we got that like in the center of the season. And so to
Mhm.
follow up that, I was like, man, what are they gonna come with next? Because like I said, unlike some people in the room, I didn't see the title, so I don't know what's coming next. But anyway, yeah, I didn't see the title, so I don't know what's coming next. So for me, I was like thinking, okay, what are they gonna do to kind of top that? But they don't really have to top it. I mean, all they have to do is just tell a good story, and I think they did that in droves this week. I love the episode. Of course, it was very introspective, and it was kind of like, um, you know, it really touched on, at least for me, with Storm's aspect of the episode, the hero's journey. And if anybody knows me, I love stories that have heroes that go on that classic hero's journey where they're on top, then they fall, and then they have to pull themselves back up. I love stories like that. So this one kind of tugged on all of the heartstrings as far as, just that particular storyline. Is at least for me as being a storyteller myself, doing comics and stuff like that. So I loved it. I ate it up, that type of story. And plus we got the Shi'ar and the Kree and all that into it. That was just like icing on the cake. And
Oh
Deathbird,
yeah.
of course. But yeah, so ultimately, okay, so let's jump right into it.
Did you catch the opening credits? Like every episode they sprinkle in a little preview of what's coming up and you're like, "Oh snap, what? Oh, they're about to go over this," so
Right, right.
seeing what's coming up potentially, you're anticipating where we're about to go in the episode. So just something to kind of I forgot to mention every time. I'm like
Yeah,
so shocked and surprised, and then immediately we're going into the story. So
I
sometimes
know.
we forget those moments.
I know. I'm glad you mentioned that because, well, first of all, it's kind of shame on me because I shouldn't be skipping past the credits. Now, I remember when we first started watching, I think you were there with me on the reaction.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
we reacted to one and then we reacted to two. But on episode two, I made the mistake of skipping the credits. And you should have checked me right there. You should not look, bro. Yeah, you can't be skipping the credits. But see, hey, you dropped the ball, dog. You dropped the ball.
Yeah, my bad. That was my bad. Yep.
But I'm
Yeah.
glad you mentioned that because it's like it's amazing because the it's like the opening credits play a part in the story as well. You know what I mean? It's kind of like,
Hmm.
okay, the opening credits kind of it's kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? It's more like
A
uh
feeler.
it complements the story. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Because after each event in that particular episode, the next episode is kind of like you see different, like you were saying, like hints of things to come, but you also
mm,
see characters missing from the credits and stuff like that,
mm,
characters added to the credits.
hmm.
And of course, with all that said, Nightcrawler is in the credit.
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
man, and first of all, Gambit is out of the credits and Magneto's out of the credits. So if you got some champagne, just pour some for me. But who better to replace what better fitting to replace Gambit than Nightcrawler? I mean, if
Mhm.
any character is going to replace Gambit, rest in peace, it would be
Right.
Nightcrawler. And I'm so glad that he finally gets his shine. So apparently, like I said, that's part of the story. So maybe in the next episode, he's going to be on the team. And actually, from the fallout of last episode, I think in this particular episode, they mentioned that all of the mutants are have to return to their home world or something. I mean, not their home world, but their home country, or they're being restricted from returning to their home. All the mutants being restricted from turning to their home country,
Mhm.
and looks like Nightcrawler is. I don't know. He ends up at the mansion and he becomes a team member. So I don't know. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. So how
Right.
did you feel about seeing Nightcrawler in the opening credits?
Oh man, I was super hyped up, man. I was waiting for him to have a cameo, but it looks like he may be full-time member, kind of like X-Men Evolution, where it's like, oh, he's actually part of the team.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it's a quality character being brought back in and fill in that void that is very hard to replace in Gambit.
Mhm.
Um, and he's just an awesome character all around when you really know the character. And we got a little bit of it in the early '90s and mid '90s, but like it wasn't enough. It was like we got the storyline of who figure out who he was and him being like related to Mystique and
Right.
knowing his parents are and that little arc there was great. But I think here it's like okay, we finally are getting a little bit more potential growth into the character and
Yeah.
seeing that he's in the credits now, it's like
Yeah. He's a
finally get what we were asking for.
yeah, he's like a full-blooded team member. That's what I got out of it. Okay, he's on the team now. And it's kind of like,
Hmm.
going forward, like, man, by the end of the season, who else is going to be on the team? Is Colossus
Hmm.
going to be on the team? I think I remember somewhere. I don't know if this is a spoiler. I don't know. This is not a spoiler. I mean, because anything is up for grabs at this point. But I thought I remember when they were doing like the earliest stages of, X-Men 97 is in production and is coming, and they had the turnarounds of the different characters. They had Cable, they had Nightcrawler as one of the characters. They had, I believe, Colossus, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Psylocke. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Uh,
That's just a rumor. I don't know if Psylocke is going to be. That would be great if Psylocke
that
finally
would,
got some shine in the X Men animated series.
yeah.
Um, but
I
anyway,
mean,
yeah,
you,
I'm excited about that. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I mean, before we go on, just I mean, seeing Morph turn into Psylocke, like him turning into different characters, him turning into what's her name Colossus's sister. I'm already
Ilyana.
blanking out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean just seeing him transform. I mean even previously with just with what's his name, I'm blanking right now, but just seeing some of the characters he transformed into, you kind
yeah,
of see them a little bit later on as well. So I think there's a little bit of that little sprinkle of previews of what may to come, so we'll
yeah.
see.
Speaking of Morph, though, I mean, I get the fact that they're trying to make him cool or whatever. Because let's be honest, when we've originally watched the X Men animated series back in the day, nobody liked Morph. I mean, he would just, I mean, you grew to like him, I guess, but he was like a new character specifically created for the show. And I think
Mm,
here, I think they're making an attempt to, I mean, I get it. I mean, it's cool. I think they're making an attempt to make him cool by having him, morph into all these characters, but not only morph into these characters, but actually use their powers and stuff like that.
mm.
Because I
Well, we
don't
did.
remember in the original show him being able to, I know he can change into different characters, but can he also mimic their skill sets too?
Yes.
Oh, he can?
So, do
Oh,
you
okay.
remember that time he had that turnaround where he was a little insecure and just to figuring out who he was and Logan trying to save him. And when
Right.
he was going up against the Sentinel, the Master Mold episode, if you remember him, he transformed into like Sasquatch, he turned into Angel, he turned in a couple of those characters to fight off one or two of the Sentinels and use their powers along the
Oh,
way.
okay.
There was a brief moment where I remember that I was like, "Oh, I had a holy crap moment there."
Oh, okay.
And he fought off I forget like a couple of Sentinels or whatever, and he had a shine definitely in one of those episodes.
Oh,
So
okay. Okay. Well,
um,
apparently I've been mistaken. For some reason, I just couldn't remember him whether he could mimic their actual skill sets. Cause I was like, when he morphed into Psylocke and started, doing the
Right.
hand to hand, I was like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
they're just limitations. He has limits, obviously, just to an extent. A little bit of height and strength and a couple of moments. But that's obviously a plot device every episode,
Yeah,
depending on
yeah,
the
yeah,
shine that he gets. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. So this episode, Life Death Part Two. So it was split up. We got to spend some time with Xavier, and then we also got some time to spend with Storm and Forge and everything in her story, and like I said, the hero's journey. Um, First of all, were you surprised to see or excited to see Deathbird? Because I know we know Deathbird from the comics. She's a badass character, and you know, I've always been my favorite Deathbird scene. I'm kind of geeking out from the comics, but it's like the scene, I think it was what, Uncanny 275. If you guys out there, see, this is good homework for you guys. When you're watching these episodes and you're watching the animated series, go back and read the source material for these characters because it's a vast plethora of information for you. But like I said, my favorite comic with Deathbird involved her and Wolverine. And I think it was that issue of Uncanny 275 when they actually went into space, and it was kind of like just before X-Men #1 came out with the new X-Men Mutant Genesis or whatever back in 92 or 91 or something like that. And Deathbird, they got into it with Wolverine, and Deathbird is like top of her class as far as like she's a supreme warrior. You don't mess with Deathbird. She's feared in all of the galaxy. And so she went up against Wolverine and she stabbed him. And Wolverine was like, Jubilation, take it out. Pull it. And she was like, but it's stabbed right through you. He was like, just take it out. And he pulled it out. And he went after her, and she had thought she had gotten away or whatever. She was about to escape, and I forget the line, but she had said something about escaping, and and she thought she was set free. And Wolverine was behind her, and all you can see was like him in silhouette, and he popped his claws. And they cut to the next scene where he was like, delivering her. He was like, "Don't bother," and he just threw her down or whatever, like she was
Uh,
nothing or whatever. Anyway, that's neither here or there, but that's just one of my favorite Deathbird scenes of her. I guess they're getting whipped, but
mm.
ultimately, but that was one of my favorite scenes. But anyway, how did you feel about seeing Deathbird in this particular episode, and how do you feel about her antagonizing Lilandra and also Xavier?
So, to be honest, I really don't know too much about Deathbird. I know of her.
Mhm.
So this is kind of like a introduction to me, to be honest with you. But I really got to see how menacing and, you know, um, just skilled she is in general.
Mhm.
She almost has kind of like I don't even know how to explain it. Kind of like a hard-headed kind of Nebula, from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right, right.
Kind of like I'm gonna kill everybody, kind of like you
Yeah.
cross me, I have no empathy for anybody kind of mentality.
Mhm.
And then seeing kind of like the Imperial Guard behind her helping her take on freaking the Kree, and seeing Ronan the Accuser again. Like
Yeah.
just seeing how she fares up against him, and then obviously she needed a little bit of help because
Yeah.
Ronan Accuser is pretty badass.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool to see her. You could just tell she was definitely going to be an antagonist in
Yeah.
this episode. So,
Well, I might have to turn in your bishop card. You might have to turn in your bishop card, man. I know you're a fan of
uh,
Bishop, but I might have to take that card from you because in the comics, Bishop actually formed a relationship with Deathbird, because
oh,
Deathbird,
really?
she's in the comic, well, in this aspect too, but she's actually the sister of Lilandra. And so Bishop in the comics, he actually, I forgot how he ended up in space, but he was injured, and they were both injured, and they both kind of nursed each other back to health,
Hmm.
and they kind of fell in love. And in the alternate universe or alternate reality, they actually had a kid, and that kid grew up to be called. It was his daughter, and their daughter was called Aaliyah Bishop. So
Oh,
yeah, it's this whole thing. It was an alternate reality or story or whatever. But in this reality, in the 616 universe, they did fall in love, and
hmm.
they had a star spanning relationship that lasted for like I guess about a year or two or whatever. But
Okay.
I don't know if they're going to touch on that here in the comics. I mean, in the animated series, but Anyway, I just thought you should know,
Yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna read up upon that now. I'm a little embarrassed,
yeah,
to be honest.
yeah, this was back in like the mid 90s. I think like 96, 97. Uh, those comics back then they had a little relationship. It was kind of cool too. And it was kind of like a love-hate type relationship, and they ultimately fell in love or whatever. But but yeah, this episode it was good to see Gladiator. Man,
Oh,
Gladiator, man, woo, he was doing some Superman
oh,
type things, man. I mean, let's just call him Henry Cavill since Henry Cavill is going to be Gladiator in the MCU. Let's just put that out there right now.
fingers crossed, man.
Since DC Comics don't know what to do with him, we're going to take him.
Dude,
Since James Gunn don't want him, we're going to take him. So, uh, but anyway, yeah,
yo,
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
oh no, I was just kind of adding on to, of seeing Glider, because I've been anticipating seeing him as well on screen. Because
Mhm.
when we first got introduced to him in the animated series, he went up against, Juggernaut.
Juggernaut.
And Juggernaut up until that point was like unstoppable,
Hmm.
right? Everybody was getting stomped out pretty much on the
Yeah,
team. And he just shows up and just like takes full on hits from Juggernaut and eventually just throws him
I know.
across the lake. And I'm like,
Right, right, right.
what the mind
Yeah, yeah.
blown, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, I
So, and
remember
then
that episode. He was like, "Yeah, what did he say? He said, who's the Mr. Bad Hair Day?" And he came
yeah,
over and
yeah.
hit him, and he just didn't move. It was like unbreakable or whatever. He picked him up one hand and threw him. Yeah, that was a memorable scene
Mhm,
with Gladiator. But we
mhm,
get Gladiator and the Imperial Guard, so they show up, and then they get interrupted because Lilandra has an announcement to make, and we get the scene where they introduce Charles Xavier, and he's actually wearing the exoskeleton that he had on that particular comic that I mentioned, Uncanny 275.
yeah.
That's the comic that he had in the or the uniform that he wore in that particular story arc. And yeah, so we get Xavier, and he's walking in the exoskeleton suit or whatever, and she announces him as her fiance. And so I thought that whole scene was good because it's following suit. That's a lot of people. For me, I would have. I don't know. This isn't the comics. This is animation, so I get that. So they're gonna adapt things and make things different. But for me, I would have preferred if I know the fans gonna come for me, but I would have preferred that he would have been better off as a martyr. And you might disagree, but I thought that they should have kept Xavier out of this particular series. That's just my
Mhm,
opinion. I think they should have moved on from Xavier and just kept him as a martyr and had him in space or whatever and still recovering or whatever. That's just
mhm,
my personal opinion because that gives his students and the rest of the story a chance to grow or whatever. Because we already had the story with Magneto, Xavier,
mhm.
two opposite ends, and so it's kind of like, okay, are they going to go back to that? Because Magneto, I don't know if he's dead or not, but he's in a bad place right now. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but so that particular story was interesting, and their relationship between Lalandra and Xavier. Um, so you fans out there,
What?
if you haven't seen the original series finale of X-Men animated series, make sure you see that and to see how Xavier ended up there, uh, with Lilandra and them falling in love and getting married and stuff like that. But yeah, so all that was
Yeah,
good.
no.
Um, what else? The life death part was wonderful. I really loved that particular story. It was that damn bird, man. I was like, man, shoot, shoot, go away. That bird was off the chain, wasn't it? It was like
Yeah.
saying all the things, right? All the self negativity talk. It was just saying
Mhm.
everything that was bad and everything. I took some quotes. Let me see. What did it say? Some things that actually made you think or whatever. It says,
Oh, that dialogue was great. There was just so much like well thought out
right, right.
writing,
Mhm.
just references to life and just struggles that people can have. And oh man, I mean, we're gonna definitely. I took notes as well. So I
Yeah.
mean, kind of going back to the Xavier part, what do you think about the voice actor? Because like, I obviously remember what Xavier sounded like from the '90s. Um, and this was the next best. I think it's not the same voice actor, right? It's got to be somebody else. I didn't look this up, but because I could definitely tell it was different, definitely different, and I had to get used to it eventually. But it was the next best thing, I think, in terms of voice acting.
Yeah, I think What Disney and Marvel and those guys over there in the production offices are doing with the voice matching, that's the official name of it. It's called voice matching, where you match the voice to whether it be a celebrity who's played them before, or in this case, the original actors, who voice these characters. And I think the voice matching has been superb, man. I didn't think that they could pull it off, but man, just the voice matches that they did for Xavier and all of the cast that couldn't return, from Magneto to Xavier to even Jubilee, even though the original Jubilee actress, she made an appearance as their older self in the Motendo episode. But I think the voice matching is you can tell the difference with Xavier, but it's not
Mhm,
off-putting. You know what I mean?
mhm, yeah,
It's not taking me out of it. It's like it's only making me think, "Wow, I know that's a different actor, but it sounds like the original." It sounds
yeah,
almost like he's got the tonality, the vernacular that the original actor had. I forget the actor's name.
mm,
It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't recall
yeah.
it right now. But
Yeah,
just
it was the best that they could do. You know, like, I mean, you follow up like 20 plus years later, like you
right,
don't have the same actor, like
right,
this
right,
is the best you can do. So
right.
I was just thought I pick, pick your brain on that. But uh
Now,
mhm.
if they now I'm still holding my judgment because there's one voice that I'm looking for. If they nail that, then look, hats off. And I'm not even wearing a hat or
Let me guess.
hair off.
Can I guess?
If they, you want to guess who?
Apocalypse?
You got it. So you know me too,
Yeah.
man.
Dude, I mean
If
that
they
is
get
an
his
epic
voice
voice.
perfect, if they get his voice right, I will be thoroughly impressed
Mm.
because man, he did such a and to date, he's the only voice I hear when I read Apocalypse in the comics. I don't hear what's the guy from Star Wars? He's a great actor, but Apocalypse, no.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about.
yeah, Darth Vader.
No, 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 not James Earl Jones. The one who played Apocalypse in the movie.
Oh, Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac. Yeah, he's a great, great
Yeah,
actor. I have nothing against him, but
right.
him being Apocalypse,
Mm.
no. But John
Okay.
Colicos, every time I read Apocalypse in the comics, he is the voice that I hear. And rest
Mhm.
in peace, he passed away shortly after the original um, series ended. I think he passed away in like 98 or 97 or something like that. But
Uh,
his voice was just phenomenal. And of
mm,
course, he was a Star Trek actor, I think back in the 60s. Not just that, but he did a lot of things, but he was best noted for doing a villain in the Star Trek show or whatever. But yeah, if they get his voice, man, I'll be thoroughly impressed. But yeah, back to what you're saying about Xavier. Yeah, I think he did a great job, and it didn't take me out of it. I really
mm.
enjoyed um the voice that he did. Um, Storm, just like Jean Grey, and just like Jennifer Hale did with Jean Grey and the duality of Madeline Pryor and Jean Grey, doing those two characters and making it work. I think Allison Silly Smith did a wonderful job portraying not only Storm but also the adversary. And
Mm.
a lot of people, I'm surprised, didn't realize that that was actually Allison Seeley Smith doing the voice of her Storm and the adversary. They thought it was two
Oh,
different characters. Yeah, she did.
I didn't
Uh,
know that.
yeah, she did the voice. They, of course, they did some type of modulation of the voice, but um, that bird was just so annoying. Just the visuals are just annoying. But
Yep.
she did a wonderful job portraying that horror of self negativity and the self talk that the bird, that the adversary was bringing towards Storm, and that
Mm.
self-denial of her powers. And I just thought everything that the adversary was saying to Storm, it also kind of applies, and that just shows you how a testament how strong the writing is, because it's just so relevant.
Mm.
How let me see what's some of the quotes that I had. Of course, my favorite one. Ooh, yummy.
Yeah.
That's my
Didn't the
favorite one.
movements, some of the movements of the adversary, is well thought out too, and making the demon just seem unusual, kind of like Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland, kind of like
Mhm.
just its
Right,
presence, seem menacing, and
right.
you could just feel this dread and just negativity and just Yeah,
Yeah,
like
just the
just
head
reaching
was
on
like
her,
twisting all around,
moving and
like
yeah,
that's
exactly,
just
turning upside
yeah,
down
yeah.
and yeah.
Like what's one of the lines she said? Um, dang, what is it? I know I can't even read my own writing. I know that's why you rest to play dead. You fear living. And I was like, wow, that's deep.
Mm,
Playing dead because you fear living. And that kind of like maybe says that, okay, maybe Storm had her powers all along. It kind of questions, did she really lose her powers? I think she
mhm,
did. But I think when Forge put her in that machine, remember in the first part of Life Death, where
yeah,
Forge had put her in the machine, hoping that that would give her powers back or whatever, and she tried to reach for the to the sky and nothing came.
right.
I think she may have had her powers. She would just still, like she said, she believed. I think there was a line in this episode where she says that she believed the lie. There was that lie, and I believed it, and that
Mhm,
kind of says that maybe she believe that she was, not there, but she actually had her powers all along. So I don't
mhm,
know. It just kind of makes you think. It's really deep and introspective. It kind of makes you think that she had the power. She was just fearing to live and to be full and to be um, complete with that power. So I don't know.
right.
Did you get that? That she may have had it and she was just afraid to let go, or
I think that that moment where she overcame her fear, being in the claustrophobic environment and the adversary having all this self-negative talk to her and to to kind of deny everything and just accept the fate she has right now,
Mhm.
kind of real it made you kind of reflect and be like, oh, she probably had her powers dormant the whole time, if not to a certain time frame where she started believing in, the effects of, that shot she got from, Friends of Humanity or whatever.
Yeah,
So it definitely kind of it connects to kind of life in general, and it's like the more anxiety you have, the more negative self-talk you have, the more you kind of
believe it.
neglect, yeah, exactly. You
Mhm.
you neglect your actual abilities and the other traits that you have, and they just kind of just go under the rug and into the darkness and the abyss when
Yeah,
when you're actually capable of looking at that other side and in a different lens, if that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Um,
man, of course, we got to talk about how she came out of it and it was like all pitch black at one point, and she's like, no, I will not believe that lie, or something to that effect. And she started pushing the bricks open, and then you start to see the wind coming down and the
mhm,
electricity or whatever. And she owned her power. She came out of it, and she was able to overcome her fears and overcome her anxieties, and really do that. Like I said, that hero's journey. And of course, I didn't catch this at first, but the electric came down,
yeah,
electricity
she said, "I'm
kind of came
thunder."
down, and it's like she formed her uniform from the feathers of her fear. I know there's a crap load of introspective things in that I still haven't been able to process yet. I'm like, man, that's deep. So she created the feathers of her uniform, something that she's wearing. It's like
Mhm.
her honor. She's wearing it, and her crown from her fear. It's like she overcame her fear, and now she's wearing her fear and owning her fear. You know what I'm saying? It's kind
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
it's really deep. Even that, it's like way over my head. I'm still
Yeah,
trying to figure it out. But
yeah. It's almost like, when she said, "I am thunder," and then that moment the electricity came down, she conquered her predator or the self-doubt
yeah,
and conquered it and became the negative turned into a positive, right? So, like, she like you said, I read up on that as well, a couple things and theories about, taking on the feathers and transforming her look,
yeah,
and then just, conquering the demon and it
mhm,
becoming a part of her now. Like, obviously on the surface, but like internally, it's you pretty much take on the negatives and turn it to a positive, and
yeah,
that kind of in a metaphor or in a way is poetic,
yeah. And
for her to come out with that kind of outfit, classic
and if,
look.
and if we can all have that power, we can grow our hair. Like she blew her whole hair. I was like, man, that's a heck of a blowout kiss. She had a mohawk and went from a mohawk to a full head of hair. I was like, wow, okay. And not only a full head of hair, but she's like, I don't know if you noticed the look is kind of like the look that she had in X-Men Evolution. You remember the
Mm.
it's different than the original X-Men animated series, but it's more X-Men Evolution. So I don't know if you picked up on that or not.
Oh no, I totally forgot about that X-Men Evolution. Because yeah, that actually when you say that, I was like, oh yeah, yeah, I see it. I see
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And
Mm,
I wonder, is she gonna have that uniform moving forward? Or is that just like a one and done? Is she gonna go back to the we'll see the credits of next week if she's rocking that classic, 70s uniform. We'll see. But
right.
look, but we got to talk about my favorite scene when she's in the middle of doing that Superman moment. She
Mm.
stopped and looked at the camera. She was like in mid-flight, she paused,
Yep.
struck a pose for a second. I
Yep.
was like, man, that was my favorite.
Yo, I wrote that too. I wrote down that note, Superman moment, because that moment where he, looks into the sun, listens to his father's words, she's embracing everything. She went into the horizon
I know.
of the earth. My
Mhm.
God, that shot was beautiful.
Oh man,
Ah,
yeah, that's a screensaver. I might use that for my desktop computer or whatever.
mm,
But yeah, you can see all of it from space and just the funnel of the clouds and things like that. And electricity was coming through. I was like, wow,
mhm.
this is beautiful. You see why she's an omega level mutant.
Yes.
But yeah, that was my. I think out of this episode, that was my favorite takeaway. That was my favorite part. The parts with Storm and just her overcoming her fears and stuff like that. I really liked the fact that they gave her some shine. And of course, at the end, of course, she's finally starting to see what happened on Genosha with all the other mutants. When you see the uh, Trish Tilby on the television screen, so Forge and Storm are finding out for the first time what went down in Genosha.
Mhm.
Um, the revelation of Sinister being behind the events on Genosha. How did you feel about that? What did you think about that?
I had a feeling that he was somehow involved because I feel like we kind of got left off of Madeline Pryor and the character arc of Cable being infected, or Nathan Gray, shall I say,
Mhm.
being infected, and then I feel like they couldn't just leave Sinister out in the open just like that, and I think he had to somehow have a connection somewhere of
Yeah.
something grandiose or something epic, in this kind of scale of a threat.
Mhm.
Where he was more super deep into like manipulation of genes and things of
Right.
that nature in previous episodes in the 90s. But now it's like, oh, he's actually looking at this in a big picture now and somehow heavily involved with like uh manipulating Master Mold and the Sentinels, and there's a lot of question marks now at the
Mhm.
end there of that episode.
Yeah, and if you notice, even Bolivar Trask, even he felt
Yes.
some semblance of remorse, and that's different because he hates mutants. So that is big, even if he felt remorse about it. And I just thought that was kind of interesting for his character, and for Sinister to be involved. And just real quick, it's kind of interesting because in the comics, Mister Sinister was behind the mutant massacre, and this is something that I wanted to mention last week. Gambit also took part in giving uh, the mutant massacre, getting Sinister and his team uh, the I guess direction to the Morlocks to kind of massacre them or whatever. And I just thought that this was kind of like a medium redemptive arc for Gambit because if you notice in the last episode, Gambit was the one that actually saved the Morlocks. So anyway, I
Mm.
wanted to mention that last week. So I thought that was kind of interesting and like a cross medium redemptive arc. You know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but yeah, this was a solid episode, man. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, the life death part was my favorite. I really like the Shi'ar and the Kree battles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
What'd you think about that moment Xavier is getting tested? Because I think we didn't talk about that last part as well. It kind of got broken down in the episode, but
oh yeah,
where
yeah.
he was
Him,
being told to forget about his past and X-Men, and then um that whole kind of turn of events of the whole Shi'ar higher ups pretty much looking down upon Xavier in a way and looking at him the way
Yeah,
that humans look at mutants, you know?
yeah. What was my other favorite? She was like, Deathbird was like, "Oh, we will not have our blood mixed with your inferior
Yes.
freak fluids."
Yeah. She called them simians. Like,
Right, right, right.
damn, that's a deep cut right there.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite lines. And when they announced Lilandra and Xavier about to get married or being fiance, she was like, they were like, and her new consort, Xavier, Professor Charles Xavier. I was like, consort? Is that what they call him these days? I'm a consort? That's what that means?
Yeah. Might as well call me a peasant. Shoot.
Yeah, but it was kind of cool to see you see his raw power though. You see how powerful he is with his psychic abilities. He was able to bring everybody to their knees, so to speak, and have them all sit
Mhm.
down in class and everything. And
Yeah,
man,
he had enough.
he's really powerful. He was able to sense, the massacre in Genosha all the way on another side of the galaxy. I thought that was kind of cool. That was really cool
Mhm.
that they showed that. And also notice Gambit appeared, not Magneto, which means that maybe Magneto is not dead. Picked up on
Ah,
that.
good
Remember,
point.
Gambit
Good point.
appeared
Yep.
and he turned into the skull or whatever.
Yep. Skeleton.
Maybe
Yep.
why didn't Magneto appear? Because maybe
True.
Magneto's not dead.
That's possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because technically we didn't really see any remnants, right? You maybe see a hand of Magneto or something after
Mm,
the effect of that blast. We
mm.
got to see Gambit
Right,
dying in right
right,
in her arms.
right, right.
So in Rogue's arms, shall I say? So
Yeah.
yeah, you're onto something there too. Who knows? We'll see, I guess.
Well, I'm looking forward to next episode. We're running out of time, but I enjoyed this review. Teddy, it's good having you on the show. Tell the people where they can find you and what you got going next.
Yeah, thanks again. This was great. Looking forward to the next episode. You can find me on Instagram at tbiz158. And yeah, on to the next one.
And of course, you can find me on all the interwebs just at Wash Universe. And until next week, I'll see you in the universe.